Hello, this is the RPG Crawler, and welcome to another Indie Game Friday, where each week I take a look at a different independent computer role-playing game. This week I'm taking a look at a farming sim/life sim style game from several years ago. Developed and published by Wayward Prophet, World's Dawn was released back in January of 2016. World's Dawn is a farming sim/life sim, as I said, in the vein of Harvest Moon and Sundry done in RPG Maker. So, for the three of you who are still watching, this isn't what you'd call a stat-heavy RPG. Instead, there's a focus on improving your character through enhancing their energy and unlocking various tools for the farm. Display, movement, and exploration is very similar to pretty much any RPG using the same engine. In terms of plot, you have moved to a small seaside town where you have obtained the farm of the late Noah. After a brief introduction to the inhabitants of the town in the process of growing crops and completing quests, you are told that the previous owner had long ago made a deal with some feral spirits to let the town survive. Now he's grown old and died, the town has begun to fail once more. It's up to you to seek to save the sleepy town from its decline. Pretty standard fare for this sort of game. In terms of gameplay, the game is divided into days. Each day has a limited amount of time that ticks down while you go about your business. Your ability to perform tasks is further limited by your energy bar. Each day you have a limited amount of energy, and although there are ways to restore this energy, it is an ever-present countdown in combination with the time for each day. Furthermore, if you fail to accomplish all your tasks and get to bed at a reasonable time, or you run out of energy, you start the next day with even less energy. Basic gameplay can be done with the keyboard or the controller. You move around a series of tile-based maps connected to one another as in a standard RPG Maker game, and you can talk to people /inspect items /use interaction items just on the screen. You have 2 slots to equip tools into for easy access as well. You can open any inventory screen that shows the various items that you have in your inventory, divided amongst all of the various categories. There's goods that can be used or sold, potables that list the various substances that you've collected in jars, Haul lets you see what you found during fishing or other gathering games. Victuals lists the food that you can eat during the day to restore energy. Tools let you access your tools that you use to interact with the world. And then Special is largely a collection of books and checklists that you can use to track various quests, relationships, and so on. In terms of interface, the main play screen has a status circle in the upper left that shows what day it is, the calendar day of the season, the time, and your energy meter, as well as how much money you have on hand. There's also an icon that represents the weather. To the upper right, there's your 2 item equipment slots showing you what tools you have equipped, if any. Inside of your house, you have access to a book where you can save your game, your television that allows you to get the news and check the weather for the day, as well as look at local shows. There's a bed that you can use to end the day, a wardrobe that lets you change your outfit as you collect clothes, as well as various cooking tools that you can collect during play to cook any of the number of recipes that you can uncover. You can also somewhat customize the interior of your farmhouse as well. Immediately outside, you have your barn for any animals that you acquire, as well as a mailbox where you can check for mail and payments for things that you ship out for sale. The shipping box is where you put things out to ship to market. The plot that you use to plant things in is just north of your house. The rest of the map consists of the town you live in as well as its environs. There's a few screens of the core of the town, as well as outlying farms, ranches, and other places to explore. The world isn't terribly large, although with the limited amount of energy and the time you have, it is large enough. At the beginning of the game, there's basic stores to buy tools, seeds, animals, and such, various fishing holes that you can fish at once you've got the fishing rod, a mining quarry where you can mine for gems, and more. As you wander around town, you can also find various forageable items that you can pick up for free that seem to be random spawns at every day. Planting and harvesting crops works much like it does in similar games. You place the seeds in plantable soil, water them daily, and then after a certain number of days you can harvest the produce, with much of the produce being dependent on the season. At first you have only access to a very basic few tasks, but as you proceed through the game and collect or given tools and complete quests, more and more subsystems are unlocked, occasionally with their own minigame. For instance, once you retrieve a fishing pole, you can use fishing holes, which opens up a minigame where you can attempt to catch fish given a limited number of throws. Later on, you can engage in a horse race that unlocks the ability to buy a horse for quicker travel during the day. Another major portion of the game is interacting with citizens of town. Each one has their own profession and their own likes and dislikes, allowing you to build friendships and more by giving them gifts, interacting with them, and doing their quests. There are a number of marriage candidates you can accept to romance as well, and at the beginning of the game you can select whether you wish to romance males, females, or both, allowing you to customize your selection with ease. There's also quite a number of citizens in town to start with, enough that a relationship tracker is included with the game, and as the game progresses, more and more may move into town as you begin to restore it. During play, you do unlock more and more tools and activities, and may also begin to acquire ways to increase your overall energy, which boosts your ability to get things done during the day. Time is limited. At first you can sprint, although it takes energy to do so, but eventually you can also travel more quickly on horseback. So World's Dawn has most of the elements that you'd expect of the genre. Where does it stand in presentation? Well, graphically, it's very much on par with other RPG Maker games, which... it's alright if you like the aesthetic, but it can be a real turnoff for some people. It's not the most detailed and well put together game using the engine that I've seen in terms of tile selection, but it is better than most, and it gets the job done. Likewise, the music and sound effects, where they appear, is just fine. Nothing major, it's just fine. The base user interface is incredibly simple, but considering how the game flows, again, it gets the job done. It's fine. There's nothing special about it. It's not ugly. It's not outstanding. There are elements of the gameplay that do bug me, though. I'm not exactly into these sorts of games, so there is that, but what I'm talking about are basic quality of life elements that probably should have been more standardized. Tools, for instance, can be a bit clunky to use. Some you pop into the usable tool slots, while some you use directly from the menu. The fact that the villagers all have their own shops with their own hours and days open is neat, but they don't exactly coincide sometimes, and you'll have to get used to the ones that you use most often. The fact that sprinting consumes energy makes the beginning of the game abysmally slow. You have to decide whether you want to slowly traverse the map or actually get something done when you need to get what you're going, at least until you get your horse. Then the energy bar is also rather limited. Before you upgrade your energy, you'll find yourself only planting partial crops or having to space them out between multiple days to manage to get them all. Now, there are ways to restore energy, but the hot springs that can restore you once a day is several screens from your house, requiring a pretty long walk back and forth. Benches that you can sit in only restore a tiny bit of energy while consuming hours off of your clock, and you can't really eat food on the fly. You have to find a table to sit down and eat to restore just a tiny bit of energy rather than just using it from your inventory. It is supposed to make for a trade-off between time and energy spent and make you manage it throughout the day. I understand that. But it was only very rare on the occasion where I actually hit the in-game time limit for each day at all, unless I just spent all day sitting around on a bench. Instead, most of the quote-unquote time being spent and being needed to be managed wasn't the in-game time. It was my very real life time as I watched my life tick by slowly as I slowly walked from one end of the map to the other, afraid to sprint in order to conserve that precious, precious energy. Then there's the general clunkiness of the activities in general. The fishing game was a standout for me in this regard. It was maybe the worst minigame that I encountered in the game. I'm not a big fan of fishing minigames in general, but I can usually at least tolerate them. The one in World's Dawn felt more like a shooting game than a fishing game, where you have to line up the shot to intersect a moving fish, judge the power by which you throw the line, and then whether you catch the fish or not is solely determined by whether you can actually power peg that hook directly into the fish as it passes. Now haven't been fishing in real life for about 15 years, but I'm pretty sure that's not even a close abstraction on how fishing actually works, unless you're talking spear fishing or something. Finally, while you can sometimes customize your homestead, the options here are a little bit more limited than what you'd see in some other games in the genre, so there is that. Overall, World's Dawn, it doesn't really have anything glaring wrong with it, but what it does have is a lot of annoyances and slightly unpolished material on it. It's not bad for an RPG Maker Engine game, to be sure, but for a general farm life / sim game, there's just a lot more that needs to be polished, and there are frankly a lot more fun games in the genre already out there. The writing isn't terrible. In fact, I thought it was pretty decent, and the main quest, although somewhat predictable, was still interesting enough to catch my attention. And there are lots of activities to do, but it just feels more like a budget entry into the genre. Now, the good part is that the price reflects that, and you can often find it on sale or as part of a bundle for a deep discount. So if you're looking for an okay to decent farm sim / life sim that's on the cheap, or if you've already played through others in the genre and you're looking for more and you're not really particularly concerned over the absolute quality of it, then it's not a bad choice by a long shot. If you like the genre, you'll probably have fun with it. It'll get you that taste of farm life without breaking the bank, and there's something to be said about that. Anyway, on that note, I'm going to wrap it up here. As always, I'll put a link to where you can pick it up below. This is the RPG Crawler with Indie Game Friday, World's Dawn. If you like what you've seen, remember to leave a like, comment if you got any feedback, and subscribe for more RPG content, both tabletop and computer. Until next time, take care and goodbye.
And if you're still watching this far, I'd like to take a moment to thank those who have supported this channel via Patreon or direct donations throughout the years, without which this channel could not have lasted as long as it has. For those who are feeling particularly generous, you can still support my work through Patreon and now through Subscribestar as well, through the links in the description below.